I do want to talk about this topic of how to grow a program, and it's something that it sounds like some people are interested in. But let me give you some context for why we're talking about this topic. So it may not be a surprise to you that things in some parts of higher education are looking kind of dismal. We've got some stats suggesting that there is quite a bit of a drop-off. Who knows, partly tied to the demographic cliff that we frequently read about, and could certainly be thrown around because of this pandemic stuff. So yeah, we're in a bit of a difficult situation at the moment, and so I think a lot of us are wondering what we do about that. So I want to talk to you about what I'm doing about it. I guess the big question is it possible to grow under circumstances where things are shrinking? And my answer is yes. But I guess the bigger question is whether growth is desirable, because I can tell you from my experience that if you are over something and that something grows, it means more work for you. And some of you might have experienced this. And I know I have. In part, I think for my context, I'm in charge of a program, and the reason I want to grow this program is, partly job security, but at the same time, it's also because we have other programs that are alternatives for students, and we feel like that growth is one sign of legitimacy, if that makes sense, that a certain size of program tends to look more like a legitimate option for students. And so that's partly why we have gone down that road. Let me give you a sense of kind of what we're talking about in this presentation. So I oversee a program that is called the Digital Marketing and E-commerce Program. I've actually stuck a line chart on here so you can just see the growth. I'm going to talk about things that might be a little bit messy in this presentation because, hey, nothing is perfectly linear or perfectly exponential. But here's kind of how things have tracked in this particular program over the past several years. So I started here at Western in 2016. So these are all fall numbers. I started here in 2016. The first full year, I literally did not do a whole lot of anything because I was still finishing up my PhD remotely. And so it really wasn't until around 2017 that I really started thinking seriously about what do we do. The context as well, it's important to know, is that we're in a school that has a lot of other good options. We are surrounded by many other good educators here, other good programs. There are other specialty programs here within marketing that students can choose. You can major in marketing. You can major in digital marketing, which is what I'm over. You can major in food marketing or advertising or sales, and all these programs are good programs run by good people. Our university enrollment is declining. I have no program budget, and we're in a weird place to be even doing a digital marketing program because there aren't a lot of tech companies or companies that are frequently hiring digital marketing students. And so it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if I would have started this program here if I could go back and had the choice. And like I said, there are lots of alternatives, but we have seen progress and growth every year that I've been here. I just checked the numbers this morning. Right now for this coming fall, we're tracking at about 95 right now. However, we still have 2.5 months to go. And I know there are a lot of students who have not registered for the fall that's, hey, we're here last year, and so things are on track to see even further growth. So that's enough context for what I want to talk about. But one of the things that I think is useful to share with you is, and I mentioned this in the session description, is I want to share with you some data that we have about why students might choose a particular program. Now, this research was officially published in the journal this year, but it is a collaborative project that all of us here at Western teamed up on because we've got all these programs and all of these professors, and we really put the all in Atkin et al. So if you want a copy of this, if you don't have access to it, send me an email. I'd be happy to send it to you. But really, we surveyed hundreds and hundreds of students in the general marketing program and all these specialty programs to understand what went into their selection process, what were the influences, what kind of experience they're having now. So I want to share a little bit of that with you that I think is useful, and you may be able to find ways to apply this yourself. So one of the things that we do know from students' choice of program is that there are influences in that choice. Now, if we look and were to compare what is influencing students to select something more general, like a general marketing major or a specialized marketing major, the number one influence that we saw is actual instructors in the program. So you've got to realize that professors have quite a bit of impact. Beyond that, parents are having an impact, and students in the program, their friends that they might know who are in particular majors, those are all having an impact. What's not stated here that we found out is that influences at the high school level are pretty small. So whether it be high school teachers or guidance counselors, it's not having much of an impact, especially for students selecting a less traditional major like digital marketing. It's not really doing a whole lot. So what do I take away from that? Well, one thing I take away is that our time is not necessarily well spent trying to have influence at the high school level and get in with guidance counselors or things like that. So that hasn't been the way that we've approached things. But we do know that instructors are having a major impact. As I look through the data that we collected, all the qualitative stuff from this project, it is very interesting because in some of these majors, we're talking about up to a third of the students in that program were influenced by a single person. So, the ceiling is high for how much one person can impact the choice of a lot of these different students. But I am also here to tell you that you do not have to be ultra charismatic or TikTok famous. I don't know if you know who Dr. Raj is, but go look up Dr. Raj on TikTok. He's a marketing professor at, I think, Middle Tennessee State. This guy is amazing. So, but I'm telling you, you don't have to be that kind of person. You don't have to have a certain personality in order to have an influence in a way that leads to growth. So I just want to make that clear. I mean, I personally am not completely bought into the idea that every professor needs a personal brand. I think that it is enough to be really good at what you teach and for students to know that you care about them. I think, and I'll talk more about that, but I just know that you do not have to fit a particular mold in order to make this happen. So what else do we know that came out of this paper? When we talk to students about the experiences that they're having once they're in these programs, I think it's pretty fascinating because what we found is that students within a more general program are finding that program, the only real advantages that program has over a more specialized program are that they think it's easier and they think it's more flexible. They think that, that they're able to kind of take what they want when they want, and that's great. But when we look and see, and this is across multiple specialized programs, students are just having better experiences in specialized programs. Why? Because they are having more specialized experiences. They're taught by instructors who kind of know what sort of careers we're preparing these students for. They feel like the quality of students and the quality of courses are in general higher. So you can use that to your advantage if you are carving out something that might be more niche and specialized, okay? I also mentioned at the bottom of the slide that we found that there is a decent amount of switching behavior. That's about a third of the students in our sample switched between programs. So we know that they are definitely open to some of the switching, okay? So that's interesting, but it does change the way that I talk to students about our program. Given what I know about this data we've collected, then I can confidently and empirically say things about what sort of experience people are likely to have, or help students figure out how well do their values and what they care about in a program match up with the particular programs that they're looking at and why they may want one or the other. I mean, ultimately, I think most of us would agree that we're in the business of helping students figure out what they ultimately care about, and we're not trying to talk them into something that's not a good fit. I think that's a mistake, and I've made that mistake. So it just is enough to have information and data to support why your particular program might align strongly with particular values that students have. Not all students will share those, but some of them definitely will. Okay, so hopefully that's interesting to you. And like I said, go check out the full paper, and you can read a lot more of the details around what we discovered around why students are even choosing certain programs to begin with or not choosing others. And I mean, as I looked through that data myself, it was interesting because some programs, when students were asked, why did you join a particular program, it was very much based on reputation, and they kept repeating the word reputation over and over again, reputation for a particular thing that they wanted. While as other programs, they kept mentioning a particular person who influenced them. And so again, there is not a one size fits all approach for how this might work. Okay. But just know that there are several roads to growth. Okay. What I really want to take you through, and this is kind of the focus of how I would recommend thinking about growth and how we've thought about growth in our own case, is a series of stages. And it's not a perfect set of a linear set of one phase after another. Rather, I view this as something that if you're starting from scratch, if you're starting at the very beginning, we want to talk about course quality. We want to talk about how do you make sure that the courses that are kind of the essentials within your program are the ones that are having the most impact or really high quality. Once you kind of get that figured out, then you can expand what you start to focus on. You start thinking about the program experience overall, and how do we create something for students in the program that they're not going to get anywhere else, right? What are the value propositions, the uniqueness that they're getting through that choice, so that they have that choice confirmed to them. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do what we can to market a program internally to students who are already in the school, and draw the right ones in. And then I'll talk last about some of what we do in terms of marketing a specific program external to the school. Okay, so I'll take you through this, and hopefully, I guess my hope in sharing some of these things is, I'll just pull back the curtain to what we're trying, what we have attempted to do, what seems to be working. I mean, I am here to make it very clear that is this really an experiment? I don't know. We're trying things, but we don't have a counterfactual. Meaning, if you tried the same thing, hey, there's a chance that you're in some different circumstances, that this thing that we are able to do or trying to do may not work for you. So I'm upfront and saying, hey, look, we're growing, and it's like survivor bias, because hey, this seems to be working for us, but we don't have like an A/B test for some of these things. So please be kind to me about that. Okay, let me talk about course experience. And I've talked about this in some other presentations at ProfCon, but my particular approach to creating a course is to create a course that gets this particular type of course review at the end. Now, this is not everybody saying this, but I've had several students who talk this way about the courses in our program, that those that are specifically baked in are providing a lot of value. Okay, sometimes that value even expresses itself as being more valuable than a combination of other courses that they have to take. And so I do want to encourage everybody to aim for high value density. That's a word, it's a term I've been saying a lot more around here lately, is how can we increase the value density so that students leave our courses feeling like, wow, I learned a ton in that course, and it was really useful, and there are ways that I can go apply that. Okay, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how do we accomplish that. Okay, a few kind of overall principles that I try and keep in mind are, how can we make our courses very career relevant and chase what is relevant to them and what they want to do long term, as opposed to something that might be new and popular. Okay, something like the latest hot social network is not necessarily the thing that I am trying to bake in. That's not really what relevance means. Yes, we are talking about those things. Yes, they are in the news. Yes, they're familiar with them. But I always like to focus more on what is relevant to the careers that I think they're going to be going into. What type of things are they going to be asked in a job interview? How can I bake some of these things into the course so that they have those things specifically as a result of the course? I've taught some introductory marketing classes before, and I'm often thinking about my students and what they might be able to use on a day-to-day basis, right? So that's the second point, that if I can, I'm thinking about, even if they're not going to go into the specific field, high value density means thinking about, well, when might they use this thing in a regular day, and how can I make this more tangible for them so that they might be able to fall back on that at some point. Okay. I do spend a lot of time reading job postings. I do spend time every single year trying to kind of update my own knowledge about what our company's asking for in the area that our program is specifically, and our courses are specifically preparing students for. And I will make modifications based on what it appears to be asked of these new graduates. And at the end of the semester, I do something that I always recommend other professors definitely do. And maybe you can even start your course by thinking about it this way, but just straight up tell students what to add to their resumes as a result of your course. And when I say what to add, I'm usually thinking about the specific skills or sub skills. I'm thinking about the software that we're going to be using specifically for marketing use, and thinking about these things ahead of time. And actually at the end of the semester, I started doing this where I show a slide on like the last day of class, and I tell them, look at all of the things you have done as part of the projects in this course. This is how they're going to be phrased on job postings. Take full advantage of this so that you add these to your resumes, and do the same thing for other classes that you've taken to see what can you add as a result of those two so that you get more mileage out of it. Okay. So I really strongly recommend that. If you want to see the actual slide that I use, you could pattern it yourself. Go ahead and send me an email. I'd love to send that to you. And then I think this is the hardest thing that I am always trying to figure out, is how do I get the incentives right so that students get the most value out of a course? Because hey, I can pack in as many things as I want, but unless the incentives are just right, then they may not get all the value that I've prepared them to get. So let me talk to you about what this actually means. Again, the idea of incentive alignment is, how do I make sure that there's a lot of value in what we're providing, and that students are actually getting that value for themselves. Now, this is not going to surprise anybody, but my own experience confirms that the students who perceive a high value density from the courses that we're offering are those who actually do the reading, who actually come to class, who actually engage during class, and who actually do all of the work that we have assigned them, right? This is a no-brainer, but it is sometimes so hard to actually create the incentives so that students do these things without a lot of heavy-handedness, without imposing really stiff penalties on them, right? Like I'll give you just a quick little overview of how I've structured things to try to align the incentives and get students doing what I want them to do, so that they end up having a better experience, so that they end up at the end of the course saying, wow, like that was work, but I'm so glad that I did those things. So like I might use Stukent courseware and teaching a digital marketing course where I will assign reading, and all the courseware has quizzes at the end, right? So I'll assign a chapter for them to read before class. Well, are students really going to do that? You can't make them do that. However, what I do is every chapter has the quiz at the end. I do not grade those quizzes. I don't use those for points. What I do instead is I will always have an in-class quiz. Okay, we'll do it at the very beginning of class. And what does that quiz cover? Well, it covers anything we talked about the previous class, or it covers things that, or it could cover a couple of questions specifically from the quiz at the end of the Stukent courseware that they should have gone through, and they should have done that quiz. So it's just a 5-question multiple choice quiz. So it's pretty low stakes, but it's forcing them to review what they learned the previous class, and it's hopefully giving them an incentive to go through the material and take that quiz, knowing that if they do that on the courseware, they will absolutely see verbatim a couple of those questions in the in-class quiz, and they'll have an advantage that way. So, so I'm trying to provide the incentive that way. And, I'll do a standard lecture, but I'll also try and incorporate lots of application into that, and really think about what are the skills and kind of experiences that I want students to have through that. I am teaching a summer class right now where I've actually flipped it, and I'm using the videos that I created during our online COVID period and having students watch those before they come to class. And then we'll do a quiz in class. I mean, quizzes work. I am a huge believer, as long as you don't make them unusually painful, then they really do produce the things that you may want in terms of incentive alignment, getting students to show up and getting students to actually do the reading and engage with the material. And then I do like to create what we call real assignments. Real is an acronym that I've come up with. And you see the link at the bottom. And thank you, Abby, for sharing a link to this webinar that really goes into how do we create more meaningful projects that are entrepreneurial in nature, that are more relevant in nature, that allow them to engage with an audience that's not just me, but the public. And how do we pack a lot in and leverage various tools that we can all assemble into a single project for more value density, right? So take a look at that, and you'll get some ideas of how I do some of those things. Okay. So again, this is not rocket science, but I guess the rocket science is like, can you get your incentives aligned so that students actually get the value that you have prepared for them? I will tell you, like, we're not perfect at this. I showed up to class today. I can see how many students actually watched the videos from my flipped class right now. I showed up today and it was literally 20%. Okay. Like 1 in 5 students actually watched the videos, even knowing that I might have quiz questions in class that are directly from those videos. So it is an imperfect process, and I try to adjust things without being punishing about it, but adjust things knowing that that might be happening. I might have a quiz that is ultimately heavier on those questions directly from what I want them to look at and read, and then they kind of snap out and realize, oh, I better do that. Okay. So hopefully that gives you a sense. It's nothing wild, but it's all about incentive alignment. I believe if you want to grow a program, you have to create experiences in courses within your program that students can't get anywhere else, that are unique to that program. Okay. I'll just give you a quick sample of what we do in some of the courses that only digital marketing students are allowed to take. And I call these FOMO experiences, right? Things that are particularly energizing and interesting, right? So we have a capstone course in this program, and students in that course are participating in something we call the digital marketing case competition. It's a global digital marketing competition competing against students at other universities. That's a pretty unique feature that students are not going to get anywhere else, having to create a full digital marketing strategy for this case competition and doing so in teams, baked right into the class. And some of those students within class are actually like making the finals for this competition. And so it's really creating a lot of cohesion. We've participated in Google's own program called the Google Nonprofit Marketing Immersion Program, which is rebranding of Google's online marketing challenge. That's where students actually have to go get certified in Google Ads, and then Google will assign a real nonprofit organization to each team and give them $10,000 of free spending money to use toward running an actual ad campaign for this client. And they have to talk to the client and they have to give them updates, right? And so actually running real ad campaigns with real money, working with real clients. I mean, these are experiences that are challenging, but they're real, and they're creating some a little bit of external envy, if we want to call it that. We have a program that we've just launched. It's an SEO course within our program, and in that course, I'm teaching students how to build their own WordPress websites and use those for marketing purposes. How to make money with them, like I've done with some of my own sites. So it's like students can tell their friends, hey, I mean, are your classes teaching you how to make money with your own websites? Probably not, right? So it's thinking about what can we create that's valuable within our courses that might create a little bit of FOMO for those who end up hearing about these. It's not a huge deal, but you do need some uniqueness to what you offer. Okay. I don't think a ton about this when I'm planning things out, but I do think it can be very healthy when it comes to creating awareness about your own program. Is think about what components have you baked into your program that might be considered Instagrammable. Okay, restaurants are thinking this way. Why aren't you thinking this way, right? What can we do that students are actually going to want to document and take pictures of? And I'm talking, what have I experienced in this regard? Well, if you leave campus and go somewhere. Those are Instagrammable moments. Often client projects, especially on site, are Instagrammable. I've also found that if I create special recognition for students and actually print out certificates for particular achievements that they've done, very Instagrammable. You are merely creating additional ways for your own course and by extension your program to reach more students because they are more likely to want to share those positive things on their own networks. I actually had an idea this morning, well, like half an hour ago before the session, of how I could make something else Instagrammable in my own course. I just completed the creation of a brand new TikTok assignment for my own students this morning. We're going to be working with a little brand as part of a new brand launch. And so I was thinking, well, they've got to create these TikTok videos as part of this thing. And I could easily make that more Instagrammable by giving them a couple of points extra credit to actually post that they were in the process of creating these videos, right? Something easy, but I also think it's healthy for students to get used to sharing on LinkedIn, great comment, Wendy, or elsewhere, sharing what they are doing and working on, and not only sharing the final projects, but sharing what they are currently doing. I think that that's a healthy thing. So you can figure out, how do I bake that into a full kind of experience, or even part of an existing experience? You could do something like that. Okay. And then I guess I'll just quickly give a philosophical sense of how we want to make students feel good about the courses that they are taking. And I think about this from the standpoint of there's research talking about how do we win people over, and it's really a combination of competence and warmth, right? They have to believe that you know what you're talking about, but also they have to feel like you care. And I think we could all buy into that. And so I don't feel like I've got a huge problem with the competence part, because we're baking a lot of these skills into class. But what about the warmth, right? Maybe I'm not like an innately warm person. I'd like to think I am, but I also kind of think, what can I do within the course itself that will specifically show warmth to different types of students? I mean, my experience is that in general, an A student, a high performer, just wants to feel like you are on their side in trying to help them achieve their academic goals. And so, so when they feel that, that's a good thing. I'll tell you the thing that I love to do that students really feel like they benefit from is I will send out my own thank you email to a specific set of students at the end of the semester who have participated a lot in class, right? I'm not waiting for their thank you notes. I'm starting the thank yous on my end, and I'm just sending a thank you saying, hey, I know it's not the easiest to be the person that speaks up in class and shares your thoughts, and I just want you to know that I appreciate that, and try and make that a little bit meaningful. But it doesn't take long to do. But so there's a set of students who aren't necessarily the academic performers, but they're really participatory, and I want them to know that I value that, and that leads to a better experience. And then the other thing I do, I kind of mentioned this earlier, is I will try to create some sort of creative assignment that allows the creators in my class to showcase their creativity. And those are the type of things I like to create special certificates for and give those out in recognition during class. It doesn't need to be a ton. You don't want everybody to feel like everyone gets a prize. You really don't. But there are different types of people who respond well to different types of warmth, I think. And so it's a great thing to think about what that might mean for your own cases. Okay. All right. So that gives you a sense of a little bit how we're approaching course experience. And now let's talk about program experience. So a little bit of detail on our program may not be super relevant to you, but this is an interdisciplinary program where it's actually shared with our information systems department. Students have to take a few marketing courses. They have to take a few information systems courses, and then they have some electives where they can pick and choose between whether they want to be more marketing or more technical. And I think in our experience, it's been healthy to give students more choice over what they want to do and the courses that are related to what they think they want to go into. We want to make major switching relatively easy. It's very easy. I think our we find so many students who end up falling in love with the topic of digital marketing as a result of our courses. And then it's a matter of, is there enough time left to make that transition? And usually the thing that's going on in their mind is, if I switch majors as a result of this course, how will that impact my graduation timing? And in our case, we have tried to structure it so that if a student realizes that they enjoyed this stuff and they still have a year left before graduation, that it's still possible for them to switch without changing their graduation timing, if they're coming from a tangential program like marketing or one of the other marketing majors. So we want to make that doable. But I'm also here to tell you that we have a lot of students who take our courses their very last semester and regretfully say, I wish I had majored in this and could go back. And hey, it's just a matter of, I mean, at that point, it's like it's an awareness problem, right? And it's a planning problem that we know we can't do something about everything. We also have, like I mentioned, exclusive courses within our program. I just finished teaching this first iteration of the SEO course with our own SEO courseware that Steve Wiedemann and I published last year. And it went so well. I had, we're up to 6 students who have specifically gotten their jobs this summer, either post-grad or internship, specifically because of the preparation that they got through that course. So that's already kind of confirming that we did it right. So that's really cool. So yeah, it's course experience, but and program experience high level, but also what are things that make a program unique? Like we didn't start very big, and we knew that we couldn't do certain things because of our limited size, but we have finally reached a point where we're now doing things that students in other programs have already been doing. We have our own digital marketing student group. I think it might be the only one in the country where we are bringing students together and bringing speakers together on a weekly basis. You can see our calendar from the spring on the right-hand side, where every single week we had experts and professionals coming in to talk to our students and trying to facilitate their learning. And this also, the other thing that this really does is it helps us engage students who are earlier in the program experience, right? You have to go through a bunch of general classes before you can take the major classes. So what are we supposed to do about freshmen and sophomores? It's this, it is getting them involved in something that is community oriented and allowing them to learn early on in the process so that by the time they actually get into the courses, they already know something and they're feeling much better about it. So we're going to be trying to do more in that area here real soon. Within this program, the digital marketing student group, we actually developed our own mentorship program. So students lead it, and we basically have students apply to be part of it. And if they're accepted in the spring, then we actually pair them up with a digital marketing professional, and they have a 5-week professional development program where they're talking once a week and going through different things that help them learn more about the field and more about what's happening from the perspective of one of our professionals, who are very often alumni at this point, since we've been doing this for 2 years, and by now I've got enough student alumni that we're pulling them back to be part of our mentorship program. So that's cool. I mentioned the case competitions. We're having good success with that. So hopefully that gives you a nice overview of like, hey, you really do have to offer something that students can't just find in other places as part of the overall program structure, and make it easy. Let's talk about a little bit about internal marketing. So I am not trying to go out and persuade high schoolers to join our program. We don't have a marketing budget or an advertising budget. A lot of the work is, how do we find the people who this is a good fit for within our program? And part of it starts with making sure that your program looks legitimate in front of students and faculty. Some of that's related to size. Some of that's just related to awareness and what they see coming out of your classes and your program. And so I'll give you a sense of, like, I think about this in terms of the marketing funnel, right? We've got different stages: awareness, consideration, conversion. At the first day of class in my summer class a couple of weeks ago, I told my students, I want to illustrate the marketing funnel by asking you a bunch of questions. These are students who are not necessarily, they're not in our program, right? They're taking this course as an elective, so they're not in the program already. And so I asked, okay, be honest with me. How many of you did not even realize that we had a digital marketing program. And you can see 7 people raise their hand. How many people knew that we had a program, but don't know much about it and kind of have a neutral opinion? 7 people raise their hand. How many of you know we have a program and feel positively about it? 5 people raise their hand, right? So get this, do a little bit of quick and dirty market research and figure out what is the problem that we have at what stage of the funnel. Do we have enough awareness? I know that we just don't have awareness, right? So we take a different approach to the activities in order to market our program, knowing that information, okay? And you can do this once in a while and see, hey, how is this shifting? Are we getting better at actually helping students know that we exist, and or even hearing good things about us? I will tell you, one of the secrets to growth and legitimizing our program above anything has been to become my own PR cheerleader. I have become really good friends with our business college communication staff who write stories about business students and about programs, and I am constantly pitching them. I am constantly trying to get our students in stories, and that often means even like pre-vetting some story ideas and saying, hey, if I did this sort of thing in my class, does that sound like something you would write about? I promise I'm not guiding my curriculum that way, but I am in many cases just pre-vetting some things that we're doing so that we can get more students in the news, because the more of your own students that you can shine a positive spotlight on, the more awareness you're going to get, because those students are going to share that stuff everywhere. Their family members are going to share it everywhere. It's going to create a lot of positive awareness. So become best friends with the people who might possibly write stories about your students or your program or your courses, and that can turn into good things. I'll mention a couple of just details about how to actually win students over at the point of when they're actually thinking about potentially making this choice. I do think it's useful to understand your own program's value propositions and which of those value propositions is actually resonating with students. I'll show you something in a minute to show you how I did this. I think it's great to have an actual pitch deck. I think I am more successful at bringing a student into our program if I can get 15 minutes with them to take them through the deck that I've prepared to show them all the cool things that they get to do in our program. If you want to see the deck that I actually use, I use this on students who are at the high school level or students who are in college and looking at majors and have a high degree of conversion, just by showing them the cool things that they will potentially do. And take every opportunity you can to get in front of students and speak. I think that's a thing that's, I mean, if you want to grow a program, you've got to always be in selling mode. I'm not a salesperson, but I do know that, hey, conversion of a student, growth of a student happens one student at a time in my experience. I don't know that there's a scalable silver bullet to growth. So it's just about doing good things on a frequent basis. I'll show you some of the data that I use to kind of make some of our decisions. I got access to our university website's analytics, so I can see which of our program pages are being visited the most. This tells me something about, are we sending people to the pages that we think have the right information, or which pages should we prioritize when it comes to which ones we may want to redesign or keep updated based on which ones are being visited. I guarantee that you could get a one-time data pull from your own analytics team, either in your business college or at the university level. I'm sure they'd be happy to share that with you. This is what I wanted to mention about the value proposition thing. I know that there are a lot of good reasons the student might want to join our program, but I don't know which ones are important. So what I did is I listed out a bunch of them. I brought them into class and I said, hey, look at all these value propositions. How would you rank your top 3 out of which of these actually speak to you and resonate with you? And I had them rank 1, 2, 3, and I got data about what is it that would really be most impressive to them. And what do I do with this data? Well, I'm going to use this to change what I focus on when I talk to prospective students. I'm going to use it to change what I put on our web pages and what I prioritize on that page or in our material. You do not know unless you actually do some of this market research yourself. But that's been a great thing. In all the stuff that you are creating, whether it's for web or email or print, you've got to answer your basic 3 questions in those materials. What are you offering? Why should I choose you? Which is where you can use these value propositions and what you know about student values. And what do you want me to do next? Like, students are very open to, this is not students, this is people who come to websites. Tell them what to do, invite them to set up a meeting, invite them to talk to a counselor in your advising office about this program, right? Tell them that like that is the logical next step, and some of them will actually do it. And I will say that, hopefully you're proud of your program enough to always be selling that program and do so without, one thing I have said is I will never try to poach specific students from another program. I am not out there here trying to steal a student from an existing program that run by one of my colleagues. And I think that that's a good policy. Last thing I want to mention is this idea of external marketing. And I'm not trying to reach a whole bunch of people outside the university to get them to come to Western for this program, to be honest. But what I do is I do try and do some external marketing specifically so that I can do better internal marketing. I'll give you one example here, and this I totally recommend doing this, is figure out if there are any local conferences that you can speak at, and the session that you want to give is how to hire, like the one I gave with somebody that I've teamed up with who's hired my students, how to hire a social media intern. One of the most successful local presentations I gave. And not only does it turn into more opportunities for your students, but also allows you to talk about your program and your students, and that can turn into good things later. So I highly recommend trying to do that. This is some keyword research that I'm doing specifically to go change our website. If you look at our website for our program, it is awful. It is absolutely awful. It totally like defies what you would expect given how much I said I care about this stuff. I'm working on the redesign right now, but I'm doing keyword research to understand, hey, if some people go searching for this thing, I want a better chance of actually showing up for the things that people are searching for. So, and I'm an SEO by background, so this is kind of what I do. I will tell you, what have we done that has not worked? We have tried to sell the wrong students on our program, trying to like strong arm persuade people into joining the program that weren't lukewarm about it. Not a good thing. Those students are not going to be motivated. Sometimes trying to recruit through lower level classes, that could work, but sometimes it doesn't work. I thought, oh, I'm going to teach principles of marketing specifically to bring students into the digital marketing program. But then all those students are like aviation and finance and accounting, and they're not going to change. We once tried to do something big and host an entire digital marketing conference with our students, and not having done that before, we thought that'd be a great way to drive some awareness, but no, we're just bad. We're just bad at event planning. And so that was too much for us to bite off, and we had to cancel it because it just wasn't coming together. We also tried to put together an advisory board thinking, oh, great, we want all these people to come in and help us, have partnership opportunities. And we did it too early. Like we did it the first year I got here, and we didn't do anything with them. That's something I still feel really guilty about. So if you really need that, that might be beneficial, but make sure you actually have a plan for that. Okay. Like I said, growth really does happen one student at a time. We're now starting to see like high school students post on Instagram about their admission to Western and the specific program. And I just like saw this one and it's got me so excited. But it's evidence that, hey, this is working and continuing to gain momentum. So that is it. Thank you so much. Let's go build some stuff, but definitely send me an email if there's anything that I mentioned that you want to see. I'd be happy to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. I don't know about everyone else. While Scott was running, I was enrolling in Western Michigan, trying to get in so I can get into this program, this course, because it sounds awesome. I think you built an awesome program there and a lot of great takeaways here. People were sounding off in the chat. A few questions that came in. You mentioned less influence on high school students. Could you expand on that? I think you're referring to fewer influences by people. Do you know what are key factors that influence how high school students choose?
Well, I don't know that I've got great data on that, because everyone that we surveyed is already an existing college student. So they're kind of thinking about, okay, I've chosen a major. Why did I choose that major? And at that stage, very few of them are thinking back to the high school level. I think, we've got a little bit more influence that evidence that a high school business professor might lead a student to go into business, or maybe even a marketing instructor in high school may lead them to choose general marketing, but it's almost never going to lead someone to choose a very specific, like a specialized program, from what we can tell.
Okay. Another question, this individual said they're running into a problem where many digital marketing skills are taught in non-marketing degree programs, such as website design, graphics, video advertising. To what extent do you suggest trying to capture those topics in a marketing program and take ownership of them at the university?
So I'm making assumption that you're talking, and we're seeing a lot of this happen, that the communications and the journalism and the media and other programs are starting to do this stuff. I don't worry about them. I honestly don't. But I will say that, because they've selected those programs very often because they don't want to take accounting and finance and econ, right? And so it's a value decision that students have made to go into those programs. It usually doesn't have a lot to do with me. We are thinking about making like a minor of our program that students in those programs could take. I don't know if I'm totally bought into that idea, but it would create more awareness for our major. I'm just not sold on that yet. I don't worry about what they're doing in other departments because I'm going to do it better.
Excellent. What was your experience like actually implementing Google Immersion Grant in your class, and would you do it again or do more of it?
Oh, loaded question. The answer is it sucked. I've now done it twice, and the reality is it is phenomenal experience. I got multiple students who have gone into paid search careers because of that one experience. So I know it gets jobs. At the same time, it is too unpredictable to bake into a calendar schedule. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to first do it extracurricularly. I'm just going to take it out of my class, and I'm just going to offer it as an extracurricular thing. If my students want to do it, I can coach them. The thing that's most important is you can't have fixed timelines, right? That's what makes it so hard. So this fall, I'm going to just tell students, if you want to do this, if you want to get together, if you want to do this, I'll coach you through it, and we'll just go at our own pace. In the future, I've been talking about, we're probably going to turn that specific thing into something like a pop-up course, where it might be like a 1 or a 2 credit thing, where we won't have a set class schedule that they have to kind of do things toward, because sometimes just Google takes a while on their end and they don't get back to you, or you end up getting like, I had one team that had to rifle through 4 different clients that Google assigned before they finally got one that was actually like good, and it just ruined things for that team. So yeah, I'm going to be flexible with, I'm pulling that out because it's not something I can rely on well enough, but I still want to do it. So I'm finding more flexible ways to go about it than I'm planning. It's a good question.
Yeah, as I've heard, is it's really good when it works.
When it works,
you're at the mercy of the client there, and that
you can't be a professor that ends up having like a bunch of semi-random working things that will come back to you in the course evaluation, right? Yeah. Students need to know that you're in control.
Yeah. And then the last question I think we have here, any good sources for what employers are looking for in marketing skills, not digital marketing specifically, but just marketing skills in general for new graduates?
Wait, sorry, say that one more time. Was it marketing or digital marketing that you asked?
Marketing skills, general marketing skills, not specifically digital.
Oh, geez, I do. There's a tool that I tweeted about, and I've been, I'm going to go back to it. There's a new tool that can show you what skills are showing up in job postings for a marketing manager, not digital marketing, but marketing manager, and how those changed over the past 5 years. And so like I just snagged some of this data for an article that the business school is writing about our new SEO class right now. And so I wish I had a way to snag that really quickly. I promise to tweet about it today.
Follow Scott on Twitter. This is he has it.
All just a call to action right now, to get more Twitter followers. That's all it was, guys. Yeah. That's all. Or you can email me, and I will definitely send you the tool, because it's a really nice one that specifically takes job postings from LinkedIn, allows you to look at specific job titles and what skills are showing up. That it doesn't have it's not a normal name, and so it'd be easy for me to share here.
All right, one last question here. Do you require any certifications or incorporate e-portfolios into your programs?
I like some certifications. You can go, we published a beautiful paper a couple of years ago on which certifications are marketing and communications professors actually using right now. So hit me up if you want to see that paper. What are people using? How are they using them? I know from the research I've done that out of the many different certifications that are available, only a couple of them actually show up in job postings, like Google Analytics, but Google Analytics is going over to GA4 and they don't have a certification for it yet. And so it's like, well, do I want them to get certified on the old one? And Google Search Ads, that's the other one that actually shows up sometimes in job postings. Those are the ones that I make sure we bake into our program and have students do. And some of the other ones I might offer as extra credit in a particular course, because I like the idea of students working outside of class on a credential that interests them. I'm getting more questions about the portfolio stuff lately. And so I've been talking to students about how to do more of that. And I am encouraging students to put their portfolio, their visual and like case study, that type of stuff on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn now has much better ways to visually show what you have done. So it's like, it's better than making a free Weebly site that just doesn't look that professional. Just use LinkedIn and have it, customize it the way you want. And I think that's a good starting point for most students.
Awesome. Well,